Hello, students. Uh, Again, welcome you all to my English classes. From today, I'm going to start a new topic. Okay. So, till now, I discussed lessons from the textbook as well as I discussed one topic from writing section, that is advertisement. And from today, I'm going to start a new topic, and all of you are familiar with this topic because you did this in school when you were in class 9 or 10. And the topic is from grammar, okay, and it is voice. Changing of voice is very important because 3 marks will come in the examination. You have to change the voice of 3 or 4 marks. Sometimes it comes for 4 marks also. You have to change the voice of certain sentences. Now, as I told you that all of you are familiar with changes of voice, but I want to again bring those things, the rules of changing voice to your mind. I want to bring back to your mind again. Okay, so that is why in the next 3 or 4 classes, I'm going to discuss about voice, the different rules of changing the voice. So today, first of all, let us discuss what is voice, and first of all, let us discuss the basic rules of changing voice. And I hope that all of you have pen and paper with you, and please note down the points. Okay. First of all, let us come to definition of voice. Now, what is voice? Voice kat bole. In English grammar, voice is the form of the verb which shows whether the subject acts or subject is the doer of the action, or whether the subject is acted upon or subject is the receiver of the action. Okay, now what is voice? Again, voice is the form of verb. Remember, tense is also a form of verb. In tense, the verb denotes at what time the action has taken place. And similarly, voice is also a form of verb. But in voice, it denotes that whether the subject acts or performs the work, whether the subject is the doer of the work or the action, and whether the action has been acted upon, action, the subject on the subject, or subject is the receiver of the action. So বস্তুটো বুজি পাইছা যে ভইচও ভাৰ্বৰ এটা ফৰ্মে হয়, যেনেকৈ টেন্সও ভাৰ্বৰ এটা ফৰ্ম হয়, কিন্তু টেন্সত কি কৰে, কোনোবা এটা একশ্যন কেতিয়া হৈছে, পাষ্টত হৈছিলে নে প্ৰেজেণ্টত হৈছিলে নে ফিউচাৰত হ'ব, সেইটো ডিনোট কৰে। একেদৰে ভইচও এটা ফৰ্ম হয়, কিন্তু ভইচে টাইমটো ডিনোট নকৰে। ভইচে কি কৰে, ছাবজেক্টটোৱে সেই একশ্যনটো কৰিছে, whether the subject is the doer of the action or whether the action has been acted upon the subject, যে একশ্যনটো ছাবজেক্টৰ ওপৰত কৰা হৈছে, সেইটো ডিনোট কৰে ভইচে। চ' এইটোৱে হৈছে ডিফাৰেঞ্চ ভইচ আৰু টেন্সৰ। চিমিলাৰিটি কি, যে দুয়োটাই ভাৰ্বৰ এটা ফৰ্ম, কিন্তু টেন্সত কি হয়, তাত ভাৰ্বটোৱে একশ্যনটো কেতিয়া হৈছে সেইটো বুজায়, সময়টো নিৰূপণ কৰে। এণ্ড হিয়াৰ ইন ভইচ, what happened? The verb denotes that whether the subject is the doer of the action, whether the subject does the action or did the action, or whether the subject is acted upon or subject is the receiver of the action. To make it clear, let us come to the examples here I have given. The first example is, my grandfather took me to the art exhibition. Now look at this sentence. Generally, sentences, they have a common structure, that is subject, verb and object. That is the basic structure of a sentence. Now here, my grandfather took me to the art exhibition. Now look at this sentence. In this sentence, my grandfather, here what is the subject here? Grandfather is the subject here. Then what is the verb in the sentence? Took It is in the past form of take. And what is the object in this sentence? That is me. So, my grandfather took me to the action. Now, here, who is the doer of the action? The subject is the doer of the action. I was taken to the exhibition. Who took me to the exhibition? Grandfather took me to the exhibition. So here the grandfather, that is the subject, is the doer. So that is why in this sentence, the verb took emphasize the doer of the action. That the grandfather is the doer here. Okay, then look at the second sentence. I was taken to the art exhibition by my grandfather. Here, I is the subject, then was taken is the verb, and my grandfather is the object. Now, here, the subject I, whether the subject performed the action? No. Here, subject is not the doer of the action. The verb denotes that the action has been here done upon the subject. Subject is acted upon, or the subject is the receiver of the action. So here was taken, the verb emphasizes the action more than the doer of the action. In the previous sentence number 1, the verb emphasizes the doer of the action. But in the second example, the verb is not emphasizing the doer of the action. Here the verb is emphasizing the action. So in the second sentence, the action has been acted upon the subject. In the first sentence, the subject acted the action. Okay, so this is called voice. That the verb denotes, in voice, the verb denotes whether the action has been performed by the subject, whether the subject is the doer of the action, as in the first sentence, the subject is the doer of the action, and on the other hand, it also denotes that whether the subject is acted upon or subject is the receiver of the action. In the second sentence, it emphasized that the subject is the receiver of the action. বস্তুটো বুজি পাইছা নহয় যে ভইসে এটোৱে ডিনোট কৰে যে সাবজেক্টটোৱে কামটো কৰিছে নে কামটো সাবজেক্টটোৰ ওপৰত কৰা হৈছে। এটা প্ৰথম সেন্টেন্সটোত গ্ৰান্ডফাদাৰ হৈছে সাবজেক্ট আৰু সাবজেক্টটোৱে কামটো কৰিছে, কাৰণ গ্ৰান্ডফাদাৰে মোক কলৈ লৈ গৈছে, আৰ্ট এক্সিবিশনলৈ লৈ গৈছে। গতিকে কামটো, একচনটো কোনে কৰিছে? গ্ৰান্ডফাদাৰে কৰিছে। কিন্তু দ্বিতীয় সেন্টেন্সটোত আই ওয়াজ টেকেন টু দ্য আৰ্ট এক্সিবিশন বাই মাই গ্ৰান্ডফাদাৰ, ইয়াত সাবজেক্টটো হৈছে আই। আইটোৱে কিন্তু ইয়াত কামটো কৰা নাই, আইৰ ওপৰত কামটো কৰা হৈছে যে মোক এক্সিবিশনলৈ লৈ যোৱা হৈছে। কোনে লৈ গৈছে? গ্ৰান্ডফাদাৰে। গতিকে ইয়াত আই যেটো সাবজেক্ট হয়, সেই সাবজেক্টটো ইয়াত কি নহয়, একচনটো সেই সাবজেক্টটোৱে কৰা নাই, ইয়াত সাবজেক্টটোৰ ওপৰত একচনটো কৰা হৈছে, কামটো কৰা হৈছে। গতিকে এই বস্তুখিনিয়ে ডিনোট কৰে কিহে? ভইচে ডিনোট কৰে। বস্তুটো ক্লিয়াৰ হৈছে নে তোমালোকৰ? এতিয়া আমি নেক্সট স্লাইডলৈ যাওঁ হা। Let us go to the next slide. Now, in English grammar, as you all know, that we have two voices. One is active voice, the other one is passive voice. Okay. Now, what is active voice? A sentence is written in active voice when the subject of the sentence performs the action, or it acts, or it is the doer of the action. Now, what is active voice? When a sentence is written, when a sentence is written in active voice, at that time the subject is the performer of the action. When the subject performs the action, okay, when the subject acts, or the subject is the doer of the action, then it is called active voice. So it is called that the sentence is in active voice. যে active voice কাক কোৱা হয়? যে যেতিয়া সাবজেক্টটোৱে কামটো কৰে, তেতিয়া সেই বাক্যটো যদি বাক্যটোৱে যদি সাবজেক্টটোৱে কামটো কৰাটো বুজায়, তেতিয়া সেই বাক্যটো আমি কিহত আছে বুলি কম? active voiceত আছে বুলি কম। So বুজি পাইছা? Look at the example. John painted the house last week. Now here, what is the subject? Subject কোনটো হয়? John. Verb kuntu hoy dhoribo parisai? Painted. Now, who painted the house? If I ask the question that who painted the house? John painted the house last week. So here, the action painted, that action has been performed by whom? By the subject John. So John is the here doer of the action, and painted emphasizes the doer. Okay, so that is why we can say that this sentence is in active voice. Okay, now what is passive voice? A sentence is written in passive voice when the subject of the sentence is acted upon, or it receives the action, or it is the receiver of the action. So on the other hand, what is passive voice? That when the subject receives the action, subject is not the doer of the action. When the subject receives the action, or the action has been acted upon the subject, then it is called passive voice. Okay, look at the example. The house was painted by John last week. Here, what is the subject? The house. Then the verb is was painted. Okay, now whether the house, the subject is the doer of the action? No, subject with house to nije nijok wrong dise hetu bujaise no, the subject is not the doer of the action here. So the action has been performed on the subject, or the action has been acted upon the subject, the house. Here the verb was painted emphasizes the action rather than the doer. Okay, বস্তুটো বুজি পাইছা যে পেসিভ ভয়েস কোনবোৰক কোৱা হয় যে যেতিয়া সাবজেক্টটোৱে কামটো নকৰে, সাবজেক্টটোৰ ওপৰত কামটো কৰা হয়, তাক তেতিয়া সেই সেন্টেন্সটোক কি বুলি কোৱা হয়? পেসিভ ভয়েসৰ সেন্টেন্স বুলি কোৱা হয়। এতিয়া এক্সাম্পলটোত the house was painted by John last week, ইয়াত the house টো হৈছে সাবজেক্ট আৰু was painted টো হৈছে ভাৰ্ব, আৰু ইয়াত the house এই সাবজেক্টটোৱে জানো কামটো কৰিছে? নাই কৰা। ইয়াত সাবজেক্টটোৰ ওপৰত এমফেসাইজ কৰা হোৱা নাই, ইয়াত কামটোৰ ওপৰত এমফেসাইজ কৰা হৈছে, আৰু এই কামটো কাৰ ওপৰত কৰা হৈছে? সাবজেক্টটোৰ ওপৰত কৰা হৈছে। গতিকে এই সেন্টেন্সটো যেতিয়া একশনটো সাবজেক্টটোৰ ওপৰত কৰা হয়, তেতিয়া সেই কৰা হোৱাটো বুজায়, তেতিয়া সেই সেন্টেন্সটো কি সেন্টেন্স বুলি কোৱা হয়? পেসিভ ভয়েসৰ সেন্টেন্স বুলি কোৱা হয়। So I think it is clear to you, when the subject is the doer of the action, then we have to say that the sentence is in active voice. And when the subject is not the doer of the action, when the action has been emphasized and the action has been performed on the or acted upon the subject, or when the subject receives the action, then it is called what? Then that sentence, we can say that that sentence is written in passive voice. I think these are the basic things regarding the definition of voice. Now, from the next slide, we are going to discuss about the basic rules of changing voice. Okay, so please listen to the next part very carefully. Basic rules for changing voice in sentences. These are the basic rules. So while changing the voice, first of all, identify that which voice the sentence is. It's very important. Then how can you identify in which voice the sentence is? Already I explained. If the action has been performed by the subject, then that is that sentence is in active voice. And on the other hand, if the subject is being acted upon, when the emphasis is on the verb, not on the subject, when the subject is not the doer of the action, then that sentence is in passive voice. So you have to first of all identify in which voice the sentence is, because accordingly you have to change it to the corresponding voice. That means the sentence is, if the sentence is in active voice, you have to change it to the passive voice. If the sentence is in passive voice, you have to change it to active voice. Now let us come to the fundamental rule of changing voice in a sentence. Now what is the fundamental rule? While changing a sentence, from respective voices, the subject and the object in the sentence interchange their position. So subject of active voice change to object of passive voice, subject of passive voice change to object of active voice. So that means when we have to change the voice, then the subject and object interchange their position. That means in the active voice, what happened? The subject of active voice becomes the object in the passive voice. Then the object of the passive voice becomes the subject of the active voice. Similarly, if we have to change from passive to active, then the subject of passive voice becomes the object of the active voice, and then the object of the passive voice becomes the subject of the passive active voice. And for this, look at the example. The hunter killed the lion. In this sentence, the sentence, first of all, identify, ধৰিব পাৰিছা, the hunter killed the lion. The hunter is the subject, verb is killed, object is the lion. Now here, who is whether the subject is performing the action or the action has been performed on the subject? Definitely the subject is the doer of the action, the hunter. What did the hunter do? He killed the tiger. The hunter killed the tiger. So it is in active voice. So the subject of the active voice is the hunter, killed is the verb, and the lion is the object. Then when we have to change it to the passive voice, then what will happen? The subject will become object and the object will become the subject of the sentence. So the object of active voice is the lion. So that is why it will become the subject, the lion. Then verb was killed by the hunter. So the hunter, it is the subject of the active voice. So it has become the object of the passive voice. I think this is the basic rule. All of you know this rule. Then let us come to number 3. The main verb in passive voice is written as be plus verb third form. Third form means the past participle form. It means the main verb is preceded by the auxiliary verb be. So when we have to change from active to passive voice, then in passive voice, what happened? The main verb is preceded by a be verb, and then the verb takes the third form. Okay, look at the previous sentence. The hunter killed the lion. Here we changed it. The lion was killed by the hunter. So killed, the main verb is killed. Okay, and it is preceded by a form of the be verb, and the form of the be verb is was here. Why? Because the main verb is in past tense. Okay, so in this way, while changing from active to passive, okay, what happened? The verb, the main verb is always preceded by a form of the be verb. Be verb or form bur ki tumaluke janai? Am, is, are, was, were, be, been. So এনেকুৱা কোনোবা এটা be verb or form এটা precede কৰিব. Look at the example here I have given. I have read the book. So here have read is the verb. Then in the passive it will become what? The book, subject, object to subject hol yet. The book has been read by me. So here it has become has. কি কাৰণে has হল? কাৰণ the book third person singular number. গতিকে এটো সাবজেক্ট হৈ যোৱাৰ লগে লগে have নহব, so the book has হৈ যাব. Then be verb or one form, that is been, has been used here, and the verb read, the third form of the verb read is used here. So in the given example, the main action is read, and have read indicates the action in present perfect tense. Therefore the action read is in third form, while writing the action read in passive voice was used the structure be plus verb third form, that is been read, and it is written as has been read. বস্তুটো বুজি পাইছা? So main point is that when we change a voice from active to passive, when they change the voice of a sentence from active to passive, the main verb is always preceded by a form of the be verb, and the main verb takes the past participle form. Okay, later on I shall give a voice chart there. I think all these points will be clear to you. Now let us go to the next slide. Okay, so here the fourth rule is the tense of the verb in voice do not change while changing sentences from active voice to passive voice and vice versa. It remains in the same tense for both the voices. And remember this, that when we change a sentence from active to passive or from passive to active, remember this, that the tense of the verb will never change. It will remain in the same tense. For example, I have done the work. Here, I have done the work. The verb is in which tense? Present perfect tense, isn't it? বুজি পাইছা? ভাৰ্বটো ইয়াত কিহত আছে? Present perfect tense আছে। এটো যেতিয়া আমি চেঞ্জ কৰিম, তেতিয়া কি হ'ব? The work has been done by me. So, again, has been done by me. Again, it is in what? Present perfect tense. So, remember this, that when we change the verb from active to passive, then the verb will, or passive to active, the verb will not change its tense. It will remain in the same tense. It is an example hisabe, the hunter killed the lion. There also, the lion was killed by the hunter. The verb didn't change its form. Okay. আৰু আমি তাত বি ভাৰ্বৰ কোনটো ফৰ্ম ইউজ কৰিছো? Past ফৰ্মটো ইউজ কৰিছো. The lion is killed by the hunter বুলি আমি নাই কোৱা, কাৰণ active voice, the verb was in past tense. The hunter killed the tiger. Okay. If we change the sentence, the hunter kills the tiger, then what will happen? Sorry, the hunter kills the lion, then what will happen? The lion was killed. There it will become is killed. Okay, is killed. Why we have to use it? But because we can't change the tense. And why it has become killed instead of kills? Because the rule of voice change is that be verb is always followed by what? The third form of the verb. বুজি পাইছা বস্তুটো, যে যেতিয়া আমি এক্টিভৰ পৰা পেছিভ বা পেছিভৰ পৰা এক্টিভ হলে চেঞ্জ কৰো, তেতিয়া মেইন ভাৰ্বটোৰ টেন্সটো কেতিয়াও চেঞ্জ নহয়, একেটা টেন্সতে থাকিব। যদি মেইন ভাৰ্বটো সিম্পল প্ৰেজেন্ট টেন্সত থাকে, পেছিভ ভইচতো হেতু প্ৰেজেন্ট টেন্সতে থাকিব। যদি এক্টিভ ভইচত পাষ্ট টেন্সত থাকে, পেছিভ ভইচতো হি পাষ্ট টেন্সতে থাকিব। ক্লিয়াৰ হৈছে এটো? Now look at rule number 5. Only transitive verbs have passive voice, while intransitive verbs don't have. Remember this. Now, what are transitive verbs? Transitive verb kunburok koa hoy? Verbs taking an object to complete the sentence. So, a transitive verb is a verb that takes the help of an object to denote a meaning. A verb without object is known as intransitive verb, and only transitive verbs can be changed. The voice of only transitive verbs can be changed. For example, I read the book. Here, read is a transitive verb, because if I said I read, what did I read? So, the sentence will not denote the meaning, full meaning. So, the verb read takes the help of the object to denote a full meaning, and only this verb can be changed into passive voice. Okay, the intransitive verbs, what happen? They don't have any object. Okay, they cannot complete an action. The verb that do not have object, they cannot complete an action. So, for example, the babies cry. Your object asane? Nice. Subject and verb. The baby is the subject. Then cries is the object. Sorry, verb. And there is no object. And we can't change the voice of this type of sentences because here cries is an intransitive verb. Then the last rule is the preposition by is preceded the object in passive voice, but in some sentences it is preceded by prepositions like to, at, in, with, etc. So generally, while changing the voice from active to passive, in passive voice the object is always preceded by the preposition by. But there are some exceptional cases in which instead of by we have to use prepositions like to, at, in, with, etc. I am giving one example. I do not know him and he is not known by me. No, he is not known to me. Okay, here instead of the preposition by, the object is preceded by the preposition to. So these are the fundamental rules of, or the basic rules of changing voice in a sentence. First one is that you have to identify the sentence, whether it is in active or in passive voice. Second rule is that the subject and the object of active voice interchange its position while changing it to passive voice. And similarly, the subject and object of passive voice interchange its position while changing it from passive to active. That means the subject of active voice becomes object of passive voice, the object of passive voice becomes subject of active voice, and vice versa, and the opposite thing. Then next is, while changing the voice from active to passive, the verb is always preceded, the main verb is always preceded by a form of the be verb, and the verb takes the third form or the past participle form. The fourth one is that while changing from active to passive or passive to active, the verb will not change its tense. The verb will remain in the same tense. Then the fifth rule is that only the transitive verbs, that means verbs that takes the help of an object to complete the sentence, can be changed to passive voice. Intransitive verbs cannot be changed to passive voice. And the last rule, basic rule, is that generally in the passive voice the object is preceded by the preposition by, but there are some exceptions where instead of by we have to use the prepositions like to, at, in, with, etc. বুজি পাইছা এইখিনিলৈকে? Clear হৈছে? Now let us come to the next one. Very important, it is a voice chart. Okay, এখন মই voice chart দিছো, and in this voice chart I am using one verb here. That is the do verb, and how it changes from active to passive. And in passive, structure of the passive voice is be plus verb or third form. So be verb or kuntu form lobo, which form of be verb it will take in different tenses, you will come to know if you study this particular voice chart. It is very important, and I expect that all of you should draw this voice chart and note down these things. Okay, let me explain it. As you all know that there are three tenses: present tense, past tense, and future tense. Then there are four forms of all these three tenses. One is simple form, the other one is continuous or progressive form, next is perfect form, and the last form is perfect continuous form. But remember that perfect continuous form has no passive form. Okay, perfect continuous tense আমি passive voice হলে change কৰিব নোৱাৰো. So that is why there are only three forms, those are simple, continuous, and perfect. I have given here in the voice chart. Okay, now first of all, simple form. Look at present tense, that means simple present tense. So verb in first form or S form, here do or does, it will become active voice. Then in passive voice, what will happen? What will be the be verb that we have to use in passive voice? Am, is, or are plus verb or third form. For example, he does the work. third person singular number, so it takes the S form. So when we change it to the passive voice, it will become the work is done by him. The work is done by him. So here the be verb or kuntu form use korisu, the first form is we are using it, and then the verb is has taken the past participle form. And why we are using the first form of the be verb is here? Because in the active voice the verb is in simple present tense. Then in simple past tense, what will happen? Verb, its past form, and for example do will become did there in active voice. Then in passive it will become was or were plus verb third form. For example, he did the work, and then the work was, because it is in past form, that is why the past form of the be verb will we have to use, and do and then do verb past participle done, and then by him. Then simple future tense, active voice shall or will plus verb first form. For example, he will do the work. Then in passive voice it will become shall will plus be plus verb third form. The work will be done by him. Then let us come to continuous form. In active voice it will become it will be am is are plus verb ing form. He is doing the work. Then in passive it will become the work is being done by him. Why we have to use being? Because it is in present continuous tense. So that is why ing form is used. The ing form of be verb is used here, and then the main verb takes the past participle form. Then in past tense, in past continuous or past progressive form, in active voice was oblique were plus verb ing, and in passive voice it will become was were plus being plus verb past participle form or the third form. He was doing the work was being done by him. Then future continuous tense, it has no passive voice. Future continuous tense has no passive voice. Then present perfect tense. Present perfect structure to jana hai, have plus have or has plus verb third form past participle form. For example, he has done the work. Then if we have to change it to passive voice, then what will happen? Have has plus been plus verb or third form. He has done the work has been done by him. And why we are using been here, the form of be verb? Because been is the perfect form of the verb been. So that is why we have used here been. That is that form of the be verb we are using here. Okay. Then next is past perfect tense. So all of you know the structure of the past perfect tense in active voice, that is had plus verb past participle form or the third form. For example, the work had been done. He had done the work. And in passive voice, it will become what? Had plus been plus verb third form. And why we are using been here? Because it is in perfect form. So that is why the work had been done by him. Then let us come to future perfect tense. Okay, all of you know the active form of the structure of the active form of the future perfect tense, that is shall or will plus have plus the past participle form of the verb. For example, he will have done the work. And if we have to change it to the passive form, then what will become? It will become shall or will plus have plus been plus verb past participle form. So it will become the work will have been done by him. Clear, I think, this point? So as I already told you, it is better for you if you note down this voice chart. Okay, now let us come to the next slide. So as we have already discussed all the fundamental rules of changing the voice, as well as I have provided you the voice chart. Now let us come to discuss certain changes of voice of assertive sentences. So Take the example, I bought a new bicycle. This is an assertive sentence. Then if we have to change it, and in this sentence, the subject is I, the verb is bought, and object is a new bicycle. Change it to passive. What will happen? First of all, the object will become subject. That means a new bicycle. Then what will happen to the verb? The main verb is in past form. So that is why the main verb will be preceded by the past form of the be verb. So was. Then the third form of by, the past participle form of by is bought. And the subject, that is I of the active voice, will become the object of passive voice, that is by me. Then another one is cricket is being played by the boys. It is in passive voice, passive form. Then first of all, interchange the subject and object. The object will become subject, so the boys, so is being played. So it is in passive voice, and is being, that means it is in continuous form, present continuous form. So that is why it will become are playing, because the boys, it is plural form, so that it will not become the boys is playing, it will become are playing, and the subject of the passive voice, cricket, will become the object. Okay, then there is a confusion. Students face confusion while there are two objects. Sentence, assertive sentence with double objects, then many students find difficulty there. But remember one thing, if there are two objects, it's very easy. Any one of the object you can make subject in the passive voice. If in the active voice there are two objects, out of those two objects, any one of those two objects you can make it as the subject of the passive voice. For example, Peter was given a book by me. In this sentence, sorry, I gave Peter a book. In this sentence, Peter, I is the subject, gave is the verb, Peter is the indirect object, and book is the direct object. Why Peter is the indirect object? I gave Peter a book. Moi Peterok disu. What did I give to Peter? So I gave a book to Peter. So that is why here book is the direct object and Peter is the indirect object. And as there are two objects, we can make any one of these two objects as the subject of the passive voice. Peter was given a book by me, or a book was given to Peter by me. So any one of the objects you can make it as subject in the passive voice. Okay, then sometimes what happens, appropriate pronouns or noun is used as subject in active voice when object is omitted or often understood in passive voice. So there are some sentences. In passive voice that the object is understood, the object is not there, and our students find difficulty in such type of sentences. Actually, in such type of sentences, the object is understood. For example, he is expected soon. So here subject is he, is expected is the verb. Then there is no object. Soon is not the object here. তোমালোকে ভুল নকৰিবা, soon to ইয়াত object নহয়. ইয়াত object to দিয়া হোৱা নাই. এতিয়া আমি actually ইয়াত কি কাৰণে object to দিয়া হোৱা নাই? Because it is assumed that someone is expecting the person. So it may be, you can use any pronoun or noun there. We can use that we expect him soon, ba they expect him soon, ba I expect him soon, or you can use a proper noun there. Okay, so there are some sentences where in passive voice the object is assumed or understood, and in such type of cases you don't have to mention the object. For example, I have lost my book. If you have to change it into passive, there you don't have to write my book has been lost by me. because my book has been lost. Who lost the book? মই হেৰুৱাইছো কিতাপখন. So that is why in such type of cases the object is understood or assumed. So if the object is understood or assumed, then you don't have to mention it in the passive voice. So remember here that if there are two objects in the assertive sentence, then you can use any one of those two objects as subject in the passive voice, or if there are no objects in the passive voice, then it means that the object is assumed, and that assumed object you have to use as subject in the active voice. Okay. Next is a verb in active voice followed by a preposition. I agree to your proposal, and here your proposal is agreed to by me. So agreed to, preposition to follows the verb. When a preposition follows the verb in active voice, it will even continue to follow the verb in the passive voice. Remember, if in the active voice, if the verb is followed by a preposition, then while changing it into the passive voice, what you have to do? You have to use that preposition there. It will be retained. I agree to. Here to preposition is follows the verb agree. So that is why while changing it into the passive voice, it will become your proposal is agreed by me. Nohobo. It will become agreed to by me. Okay. Then grass grows over the field. And then here it will become the field is overgrown with grass. Field is overgrown with grass. Then change of voice for model auxiliary like can, shall, should, must, etc. What will happen if in the active voice it is the model auxiliary can is used? It will become could, shall will become should, and then should will become should be, and must will become can will become can be, shall will become shall be, should will become should be, must will become must be. For example, we should help the poor. It will become the poor should be helped. Our duty must be done, and it will become we must do our duty. So the structure will be model auxiliary plus be plus main verb or third form to. বুজি পাইছা যে যেতিয়া model auxiliary কিটা থাকে can, shall, should, must, etc., then what will happen in passive voice? The model auxiliary will be retained. The model auxiliary will be followed by be, and then the verb will take the past participle form. So I think all these points are clear to these points are clear to all of you. So today I have given you these assignments. I'm going to upload these assignments in Google Classroom also. So try to change the voice of these sentences, and if you have any doubt, then immediately contact me. Okay, so I think the things that we discussed today is clear to you, and I'll be available in WhatsApp for next 15 minutes, and if you have any doubt, please contact me immediately. Okay, thank you and have a nice day.